What's up, Green Bay Packers fans? Welcome back, and as always, thank you for joining me. My name is Paul Brettel. Today, we're here to discuss what I think is an under-the-radar but important observation from the Green Bay Packers win on Monday night over the New Orleans Saints. But before we dive into that, you know the drill. Hit like on the video, hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Brettel. Find all my work, including the article version of what we're discussing today, over at ESPNLacrosse.com. And for my Wisconsin sports fans, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, radio, download the 1055 ESPN Lacrosse app. All your Wisconsin sports radio needs. You can find me on Sports Lead from 3 to 6, multiple days per week. So like I said, Packers took care of business as I think was expected, as they should have, against a New Orleans Saints team, again, dealing with injuries on the offensive side of the ball, went through a coaching change earlier in the season. The Packers did what they needed to. But for me, one of the big takeaways, and like I said, I think it's perhaps a bit of an under-the-radar one, is the run game, but specifically the versatility that run game showcased and what that could mean for them in the final weeks of the regular season and into the playoffs, because the Packers did officially clinch a playoff spot with Monday's win. So as we've seen really since the bye week, the run game was again the catalyst for the Packers' success on the offensive side of the ball, but it didn't quite look like these previous matchups, these previous games, the previous performances from the Packers running game. Like I said, there was much more versatility within the run game. Now, of course, Josh Jacobs still the focal point for this Packers rushing offense. He had 13 carries, 69 yards, averaged 5.3 yards per rush. A very, very efficient performance from Josh Jacobs. And again, I'm sure you all saw it live, but if you go back and rewatch the game, his ability to make defenders miss, I mean, even when things are not blocked up all that well, his ability to turn, obviously we see the chunk runs, right? The 8, 10, 12, 20-yard gains, but his ability to just avoid negative plays, to turn what looks like a -1, -2-yard gain into a 2, 3, 4-yard gain is really, really impressive. So again, of course, he was the focal point, and he had a rushing touchdown for the 6th consecutive game, which is now the second longest streak in Packers history. The longest streak of 7 belongs to Paul Hornung. But in addition to Jacobs carrying the ball, we saw 8 other members of this Green Bay Packers offense carry the ball in some capacity on Monday night. So 9 players in total. Of course, along with Josh Jacobs, there was Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks, the backup running backs. Combined, they had 17 carries, totaled 75 yards, and each of them found the end zone, including Chris Brooks, who scored his first NFL touchdown, and both players did an excellent job of breaking tackles. We just talked about Josh Jacobs' ability to make defenders miss. I thought Wilson, Brooks did a very, very good job in that regard as well. And after the game, in the locker room, Chris Brooks had mentioned, Josh Jacobs sets the standard for that room, and it's up to him, Brooks, and Emmanuel Wilson to make sure that they do their part to uphold that standard and to reach that threshold that Josh Jacobs is establishing for that room. And again, you see that in the execution from those two on the field, and not even when the ball's in their hands, but how they operate in pass protection, how they operate in the passing game. Just a really well-rounded running back group that the Packers have put together. And obviously after the game, Jordan Love spoke very highly of that room as a whole, in addition to Josh Jacobs, just what Wilson, what Chris Brooks bring to the offense and that running back position. So between the running backs, there were 3 of the ball carriers. Jordan Love would have a scramble for 2 yards. Malik Willis, when he entered the game, had 3 carries, 2 of which were kneel downs. And then we saw Tucker Kraft, again, pick up a first down. As we've seen a couple times this season, Jordan Love's in shotgun. Tucker Kraft motions across, and as he gets to the center, he goes under center, takes a snap, pushes his way forward. I believe it was a 3rd and 1, and the Packers are now 3 for 3 on those conversion attempts this season when Tucker Kraft takes the direct snap from the center. So right there, we're at 6 ball carriers. To get to 9, the Packers got the receivers involved in the run game as well. Christian Watson, Bo Melton, Jaden Reed combined had 4 carries for 42 yards in this game. So like I said, in total, that's 9 different Packers who carried the ball in this game. That is the first time that the Packers have had that many players, 9 ball carries in a single game since 1953. So again, a pretty obviously rare feat in terms of what the Packers accomplished, just in terms of spreading the ball around in the running game. And Christian Watson, after the game, said, one, getting the receivers involved. It's obviously a great way to get manufactured touches for your playmakers, right? Get Christian Watson, his speed, Bo Melton, his speed, Jaden Reed, his speed, that playmaking ability in space where they can operate, make defenders miss, and again, getting your playmakers the ball in space so they can go and operate and do what they do best, which is make plays. But in addition to that, Watson also said there were some tendencies that they saw on tape from New Orleans that utilizing the receivers, getting outside the tackle box, that they thought that they could take advantage of in this game. So it was clearly a focal point of the game plan, right? Like, yes, you get your playmakers the ball, but in addition to that, there was something that New Orleans has done in the past that Green Bay saw as an opportunity to exploit by getting the receivers involved in the running game. Now, in recent weeks, here's where the other wrinkle is to this, right? So this versatility that I mentioned, it's twofold. It's one, the fact that you have, again, 9 different guys, even if you take the quarterbacks out of the equation, 7 different guys that you feel confident in, depending on the situation, the down and distance, that you feel confident in giving the ball. That's versatility, right? Just having that many guys to rely on. The other aspect of the versatility that was on display was the combination of gap scheme blocking for the offensive line, so running between the tackles, and the outside zone, going outside of the tackles, getting the blockers, getting the ball carriers in space. So in recent weeks specifically, we've seen a lot of running between the tackles. As Sean Ryan mentioned, a lot of the heavy gap scheme from Green Bay. Again, where you're running between the tackle box. And it felt like they were using that tape to their advantage, right? Because if you're the Saints and you're studying, all right, what does this Packers team do? What do they do in these situations? How are they utilizing the run game? You're preparing for probably a somewhat heavy dose of Josh Jacobs or any of the running backs in between the tackles, up the middle, because that's the tendency that they've put on tape now for 3, 4, 5 weeks. So the Packers use that to their advantage and start countering, right? They had the play fakes to Jacobs up the middle, but then have the receivers go to the outside. They had the misdirections with the receivers. They had Josh Jacobs and the running backs running towards the boundary as well. It wasn't just the receivers who were out on the perimeter and running sideline to sideline. So Packers did a really good job of leveraging what they had shown on tape previously and using it to their advantage in this game against the Saints. And obviously one of the benefits of that is it stretches the defense horizontally, right? Creates more space for the offense to operate in, more running lanes that can potentially show up within that space that it has now been created. And like I said, it wasn't only the receivers who were running towards the boundary. Pro Football Focus's initial metrics of Josh Jacobs' 13 carries, 6 of them were outside the tackle box. Of Emmanuel Wilson's 11 carries, 8 of them outside the tackle box. And of Chris Brooks' 6 carries, 3 of them were outside the tackle box. So this was clearly a concerted effort to attack the perimeter of this Saints defense. One, again, I think they saw something there that they wanted to exploit. But 2, like I said, they used the Packers used their previous tape to their advantage, knowing what the Saints might be prepared for, and then going really in the opposite direction. And so when you have an offense that not only can run the ball as effectively as the Packers can, like there's a level of force at play here with what the Packers are doing. Teams know they want to run the football, but they really cannot stop them, or it's difficult to do so consistently over 4 quarters. But the unpredictability that's now being added to this offense, to this run game, is the gap scheme, again, between the tackles, and the outside zone running scheme, where you're going towards the boundary. You're getting outside that tackle box. So if you're a defense, not only do you have to prepare for the Packers run game, right? And given a situation where maybe it's more likely that they're going to run, but where are they going to run? What are the blockers going to do? Are they going to come at you with force? Are they going to get out on the perimeter in space? There is a layer of unpredictability that's been added to this Packers offense, really coming out of the bye week with these variety of running styles and blocking schemes that they're utilizing against opponents. So if you're a defense preparing for Green Bay it's not, like I said, it's not just, all right, we got to stop the run, but what blocking scheme are they going to use in these specific situations? And the Packers will switch it up, and then you add the receivers into the mix. So it's not only gap scheme, outside zone for Josh Jacobs, but now the receivers might get involved as well. So you can see the layers of, like I said, unpredictability to a degree that's being added to this Packers offense that defenses now have to account for. And this I haven't even gone down the path of the passing game, right? And just the different element that adds to the equation when coupled together. So we can really start to see how this Packers offense is taking shape and how really difficult this unit is going to be to defend. And we've seen it the last 5 games. I mean, the Packers have hit the 30-point mark 5 straight games now following that win on Monday night over the Saints. They're operating at a high level. Now, having said that, there's still absolutely room for improvement. There's still meat on the bone for this offense. LaFleur talked about it. Love talked about it. Josh Jacobs talked about it after the game. And I think I did a video last week, 2 or 3 videos ago now, describing that what the Packers are chasing is consistency. And I encourage you to go back and rewatch that one, because as good as things have been, and this isn't to downplay what they've done this season. They're 11-5, 5 straight games of 30 points, but there's still more out there for this offense. And honestly, as a fan, that's what should have you excited, right? You see how they're rolling, how they're picking up steam, but still recognize that, hey, the ceiling is even higher for them than where they're currently at. And so, again, that unpredictability with the run game is just another crucial element that can help them unlock that consistency, because now for a defense, that's something else that you have to contend with on top of everything else that this Packers offense throws at you. Now, when it comes to, again, what are some of those areas from Sunday's game where there's still some meat on the bone, where it wasn't quite all put together, I think we can look at the passing game. And again, it just couldn't quite find its groove. And like we've talked about over the last month now, it wasn't bad by any means, but it just couldn't quite find its groove. Just the passing game was just a bit disjointed at times. And while the Saints, obviously, I think they're 5-10 now after a loss. Like I said, they've obviously have an interim head coach. Their pass secondary, that's one of the strengths of this team, and that's been one of the better, more disruptive units in football, is their pass defense. The Saints entered Monday's game 8th in interceptions, 2nd in pass deflections, and 4th in quarterback passer rating. So that's a unit that's been playing at a high level this season. And Matt LaFleur said after the game that they did a good job of disguising and switching up their looks from what the Packers expected. I think LaFleur said that the Saints ended up playing a lot more man coverage than what Green Bay anticipated on some of those longer developing routes that the Packers had dialed up. The pass rush was able to generate a little bit of pressure on Love. So again, the opponent, regardless of their record, again, there's always something to be mindful of. And for the Saints, there was their pass defense. So again, you got to sometimes you just tip your hat to the opponent, right? And their performance and how they play and all of that stuff, because that is a strength of this Saints team. But as we look at where things potentially could have been better, and again, they won 34-0. We are being very, very nitpicky right now. I fully admit that. But LaFleur, like I said, LaFleur said it, Jacob said it, Jordan Love said it. There's still meat on the bone. There's still more out there for this offense. So, like I said at the start of this, I think under the radar, really, really encouraging, promising development is how the Packers leverage the run game this week, how they showcase the versatility both in the running style and the number of players that they got involved. Because when it comes to this offense and reaching its potential and just continuing to wreak havoc for opposing defenses, that is just another layer now that defenses have to be ready for. As I said, it's not only the run game, but what type of blocking scheme, who's getting the ball, where, inside the tackles, outside the tackles. It's just another layer of unpredictability that Matt LaFleur now has in his tool belt to keep defenses off balance and guessing. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. You might as well hit like. You might as well hit subscribe on the channel. Like I said, I do greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Paul_Bradley. You can find all my work over at ESPNLacrosse.com. Leave a comment in the section below and make sure to download the 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app. Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, your Wisconsin sports radio needs. As always, my friends, take care. See you next time.